question about a solicitation.
Okay.
That we worked on last week.
Okay. Did you email the solicitation to me so I can pull it up in the email?
Well, I just got a question. We're working on it. The solicitation form itself. From what I understand, that's the only thing we have to mail back. Because remember the first training you gave us and you told us about the cap statement, the vendor profile, and all that?
Yes.
My question is, do that go with the solicitation document, or the solicitation document in this case, it just goes along?
I would actually need to see the solicitation so I can see the instructions to offer and see what they're asking me to provide. But if you access the instructions to offer, whatever they say in the instructions to offer, follow those instructions to a T. Give them exactly what they asked for, exactly how they asked for it. And the reason why I say it that way, if they tell you all they want is a copy of your cap statement in an email with a price, send them a copy of your cap statement in an email with the price. Don't send them a bunch of other stuff, because following the instructions is, number one, it looks good that you're going to do a good job because you know how to follow instructions. Number two, when purchasing agents have to get a minimum number of bids in order to award something, it's usually either 3 or 5 they have to get minimum. If they get 6 bids and they only have to get 3, they're going to look for an excuse to throw 3 of those out, because that's half. They just cut their paperwork in half. You know, people in general are lazy, and you're talking about government employees on top of it. They just want to do their job and, you know, get their retirement and their pension and be done. So if they only have to receive 3 bids and they get 6, they're going to throw 3 of them out, and the excuse they're going to use is that you didn't follow the instructions. I've had purchasing agents tell me when they receive solicitations or a bid or a proposal, the first thing they do is check the math. If the math doesn't add up, they throw it out. I've seen a contract that would have been awarded to a vendor, and they didn't win it. And when they did the debriefing, the purchasing agent told them, you were our first choice, but you had discrepancies in your math. They were off by a little over $1. And we're talking, this is for the construction of a nuclear power plant. This was billions of dollars involved in this construction job, and they would have won it, but they lost it because of a discrepancy in the math. So always double check your math and give them exactly what they asked for. No less, no more. If you want to send me that solicitation number and let me take a look at it, we can look at the instructions to offer and I can tell you. Or if you guys are comfortable with it, just make sure you read the instructions to offer and follow the instructions. All right?
Okay, if we have a problem, we'll get back on tomorrow or the next day or next week and get back with you. Thank you, John.
No problem. No problem. Anytime.
All right.
Anybody else have a solicitation or a proposal they want to work on, a bid they want to work on, or a question about a proposal or a bid or solicitation?
This is Mark Harness. I have one.
Excellent.
This is the replacement repair one for NOAA that I sent you earlier.
Yes.
EA-133 Mike-17 Romeo Quebec-0011.
You emailed it to me earlier?
Yes.
Okay, let me pull it up real quick. Aviation management, right?
Correct.
This one right here?
Correct.
I want to let me copy and paste it. Come on now. Okay, what's your question?
Okay, my question on this one is, what about the money? because I'm looking at the quote, and and this is supplying parts over a period of time. But from what I'm reading, they want me to have a minimal amount in stock of this equipment, but there's not it doesn't really talk about money, so I don't know how much the award is for, or I don't know. Do they pay anything up front? It doesn't say anything like that.
It's not a simplified acquisition. Otherwise, it would say simplified acquisition. So they're not likely that they're going to pay up front in advance, unless they're ordering pieces at a time. They may, call you up and pay you by credit card when they place the orders. So that is possible.
So it's like they want me to have main landing gear and stuff, and those things are like $50,000 each. I can't just have them laying around.
In stock, right?
Right.
And this is a small business set aside, so it's kind of ludicrous in a way, because they're going to need a supplier who already has a lot of this stuff in stock.
Right. Well, we are one of 2 FAA repair stations that have the Twin Otter on our ticket, and as so far from what I see with interested parties, we're the only people that are actually qualified to bid on it so far. I don't know. I have until, I think, November 10th to respond to this, but I may have to employ you to help me on this one, and then I can use that one for moving forward. Well, I went through here where you're at now, and I put my percentages, and then after a couple of years, I went up in my percentages a little bit because I can't see what the market's going to do.
Sure. Plus, you got to deal with inflation and everything else. I suggest when there's 4-year options on this is going 9 years. This is highly unusual for a contract like this in FBO. They rarely go longer than 5 years. Usually, if it's longer than 5 years, they'll do it through a GSA schedule.
I see.
And this doesn't say anything about GSA. They ain't giving you any information on this.
No, there's that little list of parts, and they're not cheap parts.
Yeah. My suggestion on this one, just like the last caller, you're probably going to have to put a list of questions together and email it to the purchasing agent, because they're not giving you much to work with here.
Okay.
They don't have the instructions to offer on here. They're not telling you what they want you to submit or how or anything.
Right. And I'm looking on page 5 of 7, and it says that each vendor shall submit in writing information on past. Let's see, what am I reading here?
On the past performance questionnaire right here.
Yeah, so on the past performance, what do I do? I've never had a government contract before, so I just show other people that we've supplied parts to?
Yep. Others similar. The way they word it is they want to know contracts that are similar in size, scope, and dollar amount.
Okay, well, when we supply parts to other operators that have this type of aircraft, it's pretty much the same shit that breaks over and over.
Right. Yeah, and this questionnaire is not for you. This is a questionnaire they want you to send to your clients.
Right. And so I've sent those out, and I'm having folks that we've sold parts to on a regular basis to fill these out.
Yes, and they want your clients to send it directly to the purchasing agent. They don't want it to come from you. They want it to come from your client.
Okay, that was my other question. Okay.
Yep.
So do I have them send that after I've submitted my quote, because otherwise they don't know who the hell I am? Or
it's not saying anything in the instructions to offer about how they want you to submit any of this. There is no instructions to offer. So basically all you can do on this one is hurry up and wait. More than likely they're going to post some amendments, because there's just not enough information here, you know.
Yeah, I'll probably post amendments after I ask the questions.
Yeah, that's usually why they post amendments, is because people ask questions and they have to answer them.
Okay, so let me put down a list of questions for them, and then once I get a response or something, maybe we can touch base on this again in training.
Yeah, or if you want, send me the list of questions and I'll ask them.
Okay.
You know, good cop, bad cop. I'll be the bad guy.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Thanks, John.
No problem. Anytime. You know I'm here.
All right.
Next, who else got a bid, solicitation, proposal, or question about a bid, solicitation, or proposal? Anyone? Can you guys still hear me okay?
This is Mark Harness. I have another question.
Yes.
There's two more bids that I'm looking at, but I had some questions. I've kind of given up on them because of the bits and pieces of information that I'm finding. For example, the government wants 352 1,000-foot rolls of wire. Now, that part number, I called the manufacturer, and sure enough, they're providing me a bid, and then I find out that somebody else is bidding, but he wouldn't tell me who. Well, I found out that they are registered as well, so they may be putting in a bid themselves, and there's no way that I can beat the manufacturer if, you know, because they've got 600 and some contracts that they've won since they've been registered. So I don't have a snowball chance in hell. Are they just using me as a secondary quote so they look better?
Could be a couple of things. There could be a minimum number of bids required for the purchasing agent to award that, and they know if they can get a couple of the people to submit bids, and they can, you know, give you a crazy price that you're never going to win with, at least they meet the minimum requirement number of bids. But at the same time, if it's a small business set aside and they're no longer a small business, they can't bid on it.
I see.
That's how Pyramid Technology, that's how Herb won his first contract. He found that petroleum, that butane contract, and it was a small business set aside, and ironically, the first company he reached out to is the company who's held that contract for the last 10 years, and they lost it now because it's a small business set aside. So they were more than happy to do it through him and let him make a few bucks, because that allows them to keep the contract.
I see. One more question to follow up on that.
Yes.
An example from another quote that I tried to do, and this has just kind of been practice for me, you know, because I haven't actually submitted one successfully yet. So I bid on 1,100 tires for the government, and because they're here in Florida, and you know, so I reached out to a friend of mine that has a tire shop here, and sure enough, he gave me a pretty decent quote with tire prices. But since if they're not registered, and it's under $650,000, can I reach out to a supplier like that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how people broker contracts, you know. The way people, the brokers that are successful at this, it's because they throw as many bids out there as possible. They throw as much stuff at the wall as possible, and some of it's going to stick. You know, in the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot of competition to begin with in this system, and a lot of people don't realize that. But if you look just on that aspect, okay, what is this? Too big. There we go. There's 1.2 million for-profit vendors in SAM. Over 900,000 of them are inactive. that only leaves 337,000 active for-profit vendors. And when you consider more than half of those are big business, so if it's a small business set-aside, you're only talking less than 180,000 small businesses that can actually bid on it on a small business set-aside. So in the grand scheme of things, there's not a whole lot of competition. And there's no guarantee that all of those are properly registered either, because
Right.
we've done 80,000 registrations. So you could guesstimate out of that 160,000 small businesses that are active, more than half of them are properly registered because we did them personally. But the other half, they did it on their own, and 80% of the people that self-certify fail. So now we're talking maybe 100,000 small businesses that are active that can actually bid on 23% of the entire federal budget. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the fact there's almost 30 million small businesses in the U.S. So take that factor, number one, into play. Now taking the second factor, that out of the people who are properly registered, that, not to toot my own horn, but they don't have me helping them, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're not submitting bids properly, they're not going to win it either. So in the grand scheme of things, you really have very little competition in this system. The more bids you submit, the more you're going to win, obviously. The bigger chance you have of winning them, obviously. But you're going to run across some where there was only 3 bidders, and the other 2 guys' bids were completely not even legitimate, or they were completely out of the ballpark, or they didn't follow the instructions at all. So you're going to win it just out of necessity because you did it correctly, literally. I mean, that's how TV Guy does it. You know, that's why he's so successful. He submits as many bids as possible.
Right. Well, I'm just here again. I keep bringing this twin otter up for the NOAA part, or the NOAA for the twin otter parts. This one has come up again. That's the same one that we were looking at. I think it was for 7 years, and it closed on like the 27th of last month. Now, I was looking at the interested vendors, and somebody must have screwed the pooch on that, because it closed and then it reopened back up for 10 years. So somebody didn't get it.
It's possible. I see a lot of weird things happen. The contract that who was that one? Kingdom Limo. Yeah, Kingdom Limo. Eric Christensen, something like that. Yeah, look at this one, for example. Oh, that's not his file. Okay, here's a contract he bid on, and the subcontractor he was going to award it to went behind his back and bid on it directly. And of course they had a better price because they cut him out of the picture.
Right.
About a week later, they called him up because I showed them how to do a debriefing and find out, and they said that he was their second choice. About a week later, they called him up and said, we're going to award this to you. We're going to take it back from the vendor we awarded it to. They didn't tell him why. I mean, I'd love to know why, but long story short, they don't have to debrief that kind of stuff. They said, we're going to take it back from him. We're going to give it to you. Well, he turned around and subbed it back out to them anyway. So, and it's a 5-year contract. So whatever they did to upset the government, that they got it taken away from them, there's still the vendor doing the job. I've seen the strangest things when it comes to the federal government. They'll cancel stuff. They'll redact it. If you ever think there's something fishy going on, somebody scratching somebody's back or something to that effect, let me know, and I'll show you how to go to the GAO and do a bid protest. And I've helped clients do bid protests. I helped one client do a bid protest because he thought something fishy was happening, and sure enough, the next day it was taken back and put back out for bid. So,
Wow.
you know, there's not as much the good old boys network and the system as there used to be. It's almost impossible, really, these days. So I rarely see it, but it does still happen. And I still see prejudice in the system. I still see racism in the prism. I see more sexism in the federal system than I do prejudice and racism. But you know, it exists. That's why, again, submitting as many bids as possible, so that when we do run across one of those flukes, it doesn't really matter because we got other kettles in the fire.
Right. But when I see something like this, Twin Otter parts, that's what we do here. And,
yeah,
you know, kind of like to get that.
Yeah, sometimes it's painful. You know, I had a client the other day, she said we worked on a bid for about a week and then they canceled it. So that was frustrating. Then we found another bid. We worked on it for about a week.
There? John Wayne fell off?
He did.
Okay. I didn't mean to bogart the whole class anyway. He'll call back in when he stops talking and nobody answers him.
Right.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We were all
you
talking
are.
about this.
Oh, sorry. My phone, every now and then it'll just disconnect, and I don't know it, and I'm sitting there talking and talking and talking. Now I'll ask you, I'll say, you guys have any other questions? And there's no answer, and I look over, my phone's dead. I don't think you guys missed too much. I was just saying that, that's why I like to teach you how to get through bids quickly, find ones that are a good fit, find the information you need to submit the bid quickly, put the bid together quickly so you can submit more bids. So when you run into a situation where they cancel it, or there's some kind of fluke or something, it's not so painful if you've got multiple bids out there.
Right. Well, with that being said, I think I ought to call you tomorrow and I think I ought to call you tomorrow so that we can talk about this. Maybe you can give me a hand on this one.
Sure.
Outside of class.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, bud. I'll call you tomorrow on that.
No problem.
Thanks.
Yeah, for anybody new joining the meeting, I also provide proposal writing services. So if you guys ever need me to write a proposal for you, just let me know. I also just wrote an article on LinkedIn regarding, I had a client call me earlier and said, hey, we submitted that bid, what next? So I recorded the training, and told them what was involved after you submit a bid. So if you guys go on to my LinkedIn, you can watch the video. Anybody have any other questions about bids or proposals, or got a bid or proposal they want to work on? Anybody else got a question or bid they want to work on, proposal? Can you guys still hear me okay? Did I lose you again?
I'm here. This is Mark Harness again. If I have a question about, like to Noah, something easy, should it always be in an email, or can I just call him sometimes?
The thing about calling people is that it is intrusive. When you send someone an email, they don't have to answer right away. If they're in the middle of something, they can follow up with you in a couple of minutes. But when you call them, they technically should answer. A lot of them don't. They're going to let it go to voicemail. and then they got to check their voicemail, and then they got to call you back. I would always email first, and if you don't get a response by email and you absolutely have to have the answer, then give them a call. Now, if the solicitation says no calls will be accepted, don't call them because you're just going to piss them off. And they're not supposed to use that against you, but let's face it, it's human nature. If you get someone upset, they're not going to hire you. They're going to find a reason not to.
Right.
I had a gentleman. One of my clients he called me up one day and he said, hey, when I spoke to this purchasing agent Monday, he said this, and Tuesday he said that, Wednesday he said this, Thursday he said that. And I'm like, are you calling this guy every day? He goes, oh yeah, man, we got a great relationship. We joke, and this purchasing agent's awesome. I got him in my pocket. He's definitely going to choose me. And I said, you know, you've got to be careful. Number one, if you call people all the time, they're going to think if they award it to you, you're going to call them all the time. So maybe they won't award it to you just so you don't call them, you know. And he said, no, this guy loves me. I think I'm definitely going to win this one. And sure enough, a week later, he called me up and he says, man, you were right. I blew it. I was talking to the guy, and he was telling me about going on vacation. And, you know, the guy was sharing his vacation information with him. And so obviously the guy was having a good time talking to him. But he told him he was going to Amsterdam. And my client told him to make sure he checks out the red light district. How did he know the guy was a priest? So, you know, if you have to call, if you have to have an answer, you have to have an answer, period. But I would always email first. Be as little as intrusive as possible. And if you don't get an answer via email and you have to call them, you have to call them. When you do call them, have your questions in order. Don't beat around the bush. Don't waste their time. Get to the point, ask the question, thank them very much, and get off the phone. All right?
Okay, sounds good.
Anybody else have a question or a proposal they want to work on? Anyone got a question, proposal, bid, solicitation? Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes, still here.
Okay. Well, if nobody else has a question or anything they want to work on, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep the meeting open for a few minutes because somebody might join us next few minutes. I'm going to stop recording it. I'll convert the recording. If anybody wants me to send them the recording, just drop me an email and ask, hey, can you send me yesterday's training? And